I think I screwed up, or maybe it was the cake. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I've been married to my wife, who's 30, for 5 years now. Lately, though, it feels like she's turned into someone I barely recognize. When we first met, we were both pretty established in our careers and seemed to share the same values. I attended trade school and picked up a very technical job. I slogged through some terrible entry-level positions before proving myself and building a solid reputation in coding. Now, my references speak louder than my lack of a formal degree. My wife, on the other hand, has a graduate degree and holds a management position. This dynamic created what I initially thought was just some playful tension between us. Back then, I often complained about middle management, seeing them as obstacles to getting my tasks done. My wife, however, believed middle management was crucial for directing people and resources. Personally, I had a string of lousy middle managers who treated developers like replaceable cogs, set impossible deadlines, and promised clients the moon, creating constant scope creep. Whenever I vented to my wife about the latest dumb thing my manager did, she always sided with him, despite never having met him. "He sees things you don't," she would say. After about a year of dating, I stopped sharing my work woes unless they involved days off or raises. I always sensed that she resented my decision not to pursue a 4-year or graduate degree. She pushed for it early on, but when I broke down the potential loans and debt, she dropped the subject. She was relatively debt-free when we married, just like I was. We were earning about the same amount too. 2 years ago, I landed a job with a company where the owner spoke to me directly, valuing my skills and potential. Now, I make 50% more than my wife, and my manager works well with me. He's not a technical lead, but he embodies what a scrum master should be. He knows how to stay out of my way without making it feel adversarial. He's a great supervisor. The first 4 years of our marriage were pretty good overall. I didn't complain about work managers, and she stopped pushing me to get an expensive degree. We had fun, went on date nights several times a month, shared hobbies, cooked together, read books, and watched movies. When the first lockdown hit, we both started working from home. Our house is nice, with 3 spare bedrooms for future kids. One was already my office, and we converted another into an office for her. Despite both telecommuting, we had very different approaches. I would get up, make breakfast, shower, shave, dress in a suit, and walk into my home office. I hate suits and ties, but they put me in the right mental state for work. My wife, however, would roll out of bed, eat breakfast, brush her teeth, put on a t-shirt and sweatpants, and head into her office playing Candy Crush between emails. I viewed it as working from home, while she saw it as working from home. Proximity seemed to create distance between us. She had several meetings a day, keeping her door wide open so I could hear them. I only had one short daily scrum meeting, for which I closed my door. 5 months ago, she told me she felt insulted by my closed door during my daily scrum. I explained that I did it for peace and to stay focused, but she felt like I was hiding something. I tried to keep up our hobbies together, but she brushed me off, saying we already saw each other all day. I should have pushed more, but I didn't. I treated the lockdown as temporary, which might have been a mistake. Things got worse when her company partially reopened the office. She eagerly volunteered to be part of the 50% back in the rearranged office. I couldn't blame her. I missed working in the office too. But my company hasn't reopened yet, and as long as I have access to my development environment, it isn't necessary. I suspect her coworkers got into her head. She started staying after work to hang out with them, have drinks, or go to a coworker's place. I pressed for details, but she became secretive and distant. It felt like I had a roommate instead of a wife. Last month, she handed me her old iPad, asking me to wipe it clean so she could gift it to her niece. I often did such tasks for the family and didn't think much of it. She left for another company gathering, and I turned on the iPad. Maybe she was becoming brazen, thinking I wouldn't check it before doing a factory reset. But I did check it, and what I found froze my blood. There were messages, pics, videos, and IMs with her boss. They had been having an affair for 2 months. The feeling was indescribable, like my blood turned to ice. It reminded me of that scene in Equilibrium where the polygraph flatlined. I copied everything, stored it in my cloud storage separate from work, and started looking for a lawyer. At first, I didn't confront her because I wasn't sure what I'd do. This new sensation in my body felt like I was both numb and trudging through water. She didn't notice, or maybe she just didn't care. By then, We were already in a dead bedroom phase, practically just roommates. I contacted a lawyer who advised me to keep quiet and continue gathering evidence. He suggested hiring a private investigator and even recommended a good one. For the past 4 weeks, we've been collecting evidence while he prepared the divorce filing. Be patient, he kept telling me. With my veins filled with ice and her indifference, it was easier at first. Yesterday, my lawyer informed me that the filing was almost ready. In our state, we're at fault, and the PI had gathered photos, videos, and texts, enough for a slam dunk case. But last night, something in me snapped and the ice turned to fire. She came home late, as usual, and though I can't recall what she said, I just lost it. I accused her of screwing her boss, and she turned vicious, spitting out that I wasn't there for her emotionally. She mocked me, saying I was just lounging at home despite earning the majority of our income. I told her I had a lawyer, and she laughed in my face, calling my bluff pathetic. She claimed I wouldn't leave her, that even if I divorced her, she'd get half my paycheck. If I stayed, at least I'd occasionally get sex, so I shouldn't mess this up. It was like she had become a different person. I told her that's not a marriage, and she laughed again, saying, "Honey, this is the 21st century. A woman can have her cake and eat it too." Then she went to bed. I emailed my boss, asking for a week off to handle a family issue, and he granted it immediately. I slept on the couch in my office. This morning, as she was leaving, she only said, "Don't wait up." I went to my lawyer's office and he had the papers ready with a process server waiting. He asked how I wanted the papers served, and I told him my idea. My lawyer, bless him, laughed and advised against it, saying judges don't have a sense of humor, and it could cost me alimony or assets. But I didn't care. Her words burned me, and I wanted her to feel the same burn. The lawyer tried to dissuade me, but relented when he saw how serious I was. The process server laughed and said I was his hero when he heard my plan. I had to special order something with a rush fee and sent the process server to pick it up and deliver it to her at work. The process server later told me what happened. He showed up at her office with a large box and the papers. He found my wife laughing with her co-workers and asked for her by name. When she confirmed, he placed the box on a desk and opened it. Inside was a cake with a custom-printed image, my wife and her boss in an embrace, fully clothed but clearly intimate. Above the image, the words, "Here's your cake, eat it," were piped in icing. He put the papers next to the cake and said, "You've been served." What happened next was chaos. My wife let out a loud screech. At least 8 people in the office saw the cake. She freaked out, knocking the cake box to the floor, but the image remained visible. Several of her coworkers began berating her while she cried and screamed. The process server made a quick exit. My phone blew up with her calls, but I kept sending them to voicemail. I didn't bother reading her texts. She hasn't come home, but her mother texted me, saying she's staying with her for now. The euphoric rush from the cake felt great, but as hours passed, I started to consider my lawyer's words. Did I mess this up? Let's check in on the update. I am overwhelmed with all the support I've received in the past week. I'm still off from work, but my boss decided to give me 2 weeks instead of the one I requested. Good man he is. I've already split our savings in half, moved my share into an account in my name, and changed the autopay for the mortgage, credit freezes, and everything else my lawyer advised with the household funds. First off, we have no kids. Secondly, I'm seeing a therapist who specializes in infidelity. After just 2 sessions, I'm feeling a lot more balanced, though I still have some low points, but they're nowhere near as bad as before. Following the cake stunt, I'm definitely taking my lawyer's advice on everything moving forward. He once told me, "You can be happy or you can be right." And now I understand what he meant. He mentioned that if my wife wants to return home, I can't legally kick her out, but I should record all interactions. She's still staying at her mom's, but she wanted to come by on Saturday to talk. My lawyer suggested having this talk at his office with her lawyer present. I relayed this to her via email, and she responded that she didn't have a lawyer. My lawyer advised me to have witnesses and record the meeting if it wasn't at his office. I told my wife these were my conditions for talking. Surprisingly, she agreed, so I invited 2 mutual friends over, and we all placed our phones on the table to record. When she arrived, she awkwardly tried to hug me, but I held up my hand, and we all started recording as we sat down at the kitchen table. She was apologetic, saying she felt like she was watching a movie rather than being in control of her life, and that it was thrilling and gave her a rush. She asked if I wanted to know why, but I told her I didn't care at this point. Still, she felt she owed me an explanation. She said that when she returned to the office, she got close to 3 female coworkers, each a few years older, and 2 of them divorced. They wormed their way into her head, constantly asking about her home life and telling her she deserved more. The ringleader even psychoanalyzed me based on my wife's stories, concluding that I was threatened by educated people and that she needed to take charge. My wife said her boss ended the affair immediately after the cake incident, telling her to communicate only via email and to never enter his office alone again. Her 3 friends turned on her, publicly berating her for what she did. Her other coworkers didn't want to get involved in her soap opera, so no one reported it to HR. According to her, the 3 friends demanding $5,000 shook her out of her fog. They were blackmailing her, threatening to report everything to HR unless she paid them. She pleaded for my help. I told her there's no going back to normal after this. Everything has changed. I advised her to report herself, her boss, and her coworkers to HR rather than give in to blackmail, as bending now would only lead to more demands later. She hesitated, but eventually asked, "What about us? Where does that leave us?" I told her there was no us anymore, and that she should get a lawyer to handle the divorce. The best I could do was advise her on how to handle her work situation, but she would probably need to find a new career. I also suggested she see a therapist because someone who can go from laughing in my face to pleading for help in a week needs to sort themselves out. She pointed out the cake incident, and I simply replied, "Yeah, I'm seeing someone for that." She left shortly after. I haven't heard if she'll follow my advice or try to pay off her coworkers. Why is it always the coworkers? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more thrilling tales and updates.